What's up, good people? Welcome back. I am here to give you my review of the brand new film, The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. So if you aren't aware, The Hunger Games is a global phenomenon based off of the best-selling book series. It's a dystopian science fiction action war film. And yes, Mockingjay Part 2 is the conclusion to the entire Hunger Games film series. There's only 3 books, but they decided to split the 3rd book into 2 parts. This is part 2, this is the end. So this film is directed by Francis Lawrence, who also directed Catching Fire, Mockingjay Part 1, and now Mockingjay Part 2. And of course, you got the entire cast and crew back for this film as well. You have Jennifer Lawrence in the leading role as Katniss Everdeen. And basically the plot of this movie, it picks up right where Mockingjay Part 1 left off. Katniss and the rest of her crew, they decide to go ahead and infiltrate Panem to assassinate President Snow. So what's the questions on everybody's mind? Did Mockingjay Part 2 deliver the satisfying conclusion to this film series that has become such a pop culture phenomenon over the past 3 years? Did it deliver? You know what, that question isn't the easiest to answer. I can't go ahead and just say yes, it did deliver, but I can't go ahead and say it was a disappointment either. Because the truth of the matter is, Mockingjay Part 1 was just completely terrible to me. I did not enjoy that film at all. See, the trend in Hollywood lately is when you're basing things off of book series that are really, known as bestsellers, the trend is to divide the last book up into 2 parts of a movie. That's obviously another cash grab for Hollywood. Now, sometimes it's justified. Sometimes a series like Harry Potter, it's justified, and both conclusions are very much satisfying and deliver a spectacular finish to the series. Then you have a situation like The Hunger Games, because Mockingjay Part 1 was just dry, boring, uneventful. So going into this movie, I was already a little bit worried of whether or not it would deliver, whether or not it would redeem itself from the disappointment of Mockingjay Part 1. But I can say that this movie does redeem itself. It didn't really have much to live up to since Mockingjay Part 1 was so bad, but it does do a good job of bringing everything to a close for this series. So here's the thing about Mockingjay Part 2 though that you gotta know before you go see it. This movie is dark. Like, it's dark, it's grim. It is really just sad in a lot of ways. Like, although, the stakes are supposed to be high and everything is supposed to be on the line because this is the final story in this complete saga, everything is just so grim. Like, even at the end of the movie, I didn't feel happy about the outcome. I'm not gonna spoil anything for people who haven't seen the movie or have not read the books, but really, the end of this movie, like, although there's a satisfying end and there's hope at the end, it's just really disappointing to see the outcome of everything because seriously, it's just dark and a lot of lives are lost. That's the bottom line about it. I mean, you gotta expect it that in a war film, basically, people's lives are gonna get lost. Like, there's gonna be deaths, there's gonna be casualties, but this movie was just completely laced with nothing but casualties for the most part, if you ask me. Like, it was just death after death after death, and that can be really taxing after a while. Like, I don't think you'll leave the movie theater, having a little chatter about how much you enjoyed it or how much, you thought it was a satisfying conclusion. I think you're gonna be kind of leaving feeling a little bit sad. Like, I think you're gonna be leaving just feeling like really just down about everything because, like, it really isn't the happiest ending ever. That's just the honesty of it. And if you're a fan of the books and have read the books, then you know that it's a pretty faithful adaptation of what actually happened. I know there were definitely some changes and some characters didn't get as much screen time because, for example, Philip Seymour Hoffman passed away a couple of years ago. There isn't much Plutarch in this movie, but overall it sticks, pretty much to the formula of the book. So it's just really sad to see, like, how everything turned out. But still, the shining element of this franchise, which has been, the truth for every Hunger Games film up to this point, is Jennifer Lawrence as Katniss Everdeen. I mean, she has been phenomenal this entire time. She has never been my issue with the franchise. I thought she has always done an incredible job in that title role, and she's such a strong female figure, and to see that she's leading a global box office franchise, that's really amazing. Now, some of the side characters in the earlier films, I really enjoyed them, but because there are so many characters in this franchise, a lot of them just have very small and minor roles and don't even get much screen time. For example, Woody Harrelson as Haymitch. I mean, he really does nothing in this movie, and I mean, he was really one of my favorite characters in the first 2 films, but in this movie he just doesn't have anything to do. And I think that's because, they do focus so much on Katniss's, character, and that's a good thing and a bad thing about the franchise. I love that they focus so much on Jennifer Lawrence and it's her story, it's Katniss Everdeen's story, but at the same time, all of these side characters really don't get much to do at all. But you know, overall, this film certainly surpasses Mockingjay Part 1. Like I said, Mockingjay Part 1 was just completely just irrelevant to me. This movie surpasses it, but it's certainly not the best Hunger Games film. I mean, without a doubt, the best Hunger Games film is Catching Fire, the second installment. That movie was just absolutely incredible. It was just non-stop, you know, thriller from beginning to end. It had me on the edge of my seat. I really, really wanted more, but the series as a whole has really just kind of turned out to be okay. You know, I don't know if I would still call this a spectacular franchise. I can't say that. I think that it had a really, really good installment in the second one. I think the first one did a great job at setting up this world and this universe, but overall as a franchise, you know, it's just been pretty okay. It's been pretty average, and I'm actually happy that it's all over now. And it's unfortunate it's gotten to that point. A lot of these, you know, blockbuster franchises that are based off of novels, you're just pretty much waiting until they're over at a certain point, because you just can get too much of a good thing, and it can become stale after a while. And now we got these other series like Maze Runner and Divergent, also based off of books, also coming out with 3, 4, 5 movies, whatever. You just kind of wait for them to be over, because it's really hard to keep up that steam over all of that time. But you know, Harry Potter did it. Harry Potter was never not good, and they always kept the momentum going, and it was always fantastic. But that's neither here nor there. You know, Mockingjay Part 2, it's cool. It's a good movie. I mean, there's a lot more action in this movie than Mockingjay Part 1. It's definitely a lot of chase scenes. It's a lot of adventure going on. But it's definitely a dark, grim movie. Like, if you're not prepared for that, you need to get prepared. It's the darkest movie of this entire series. So overall, I am going to give The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2 a 7.1 out of 10. Like I said, it's a good final installment. It isn't the greatest movie ever. It's pretty much okay. A lot of this stuff I've kind of seen before at this point from other Hollywood franchises, but it's okay as a satisfying conclusion to the series. Alright folks, that's all I got for my review of The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. As always, go follow me on social media, JRW the Creator, on Twitter and Instagram. And then go check out my website, jordanrwilliams.com, for more. And as always folks, I'll see you next time.